First of all, I'd like to thank all of those who came before me at this platform for their remarkable voices and contributions. And I was listening to Segun Idowu, and I said, I don't even need to take to the platform today because he's already given us what we need. But thank you. And of course, thank you, Governor Healey.
Let's welcome from the Office of the Mayor, Segun Idowu, the Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion for the City of Boston.
Good morning. Happy Black People Weekend. I'm really happy this weekend. And see you next month as well. I want to thank actually Jessica for kicking things off in thanking the staff here at the Omni and really all of our hotel workers who won major concessions in 2024 to make sure they were patient for better hours. There's one group here too that I want to ask to stand. Governor Healey thanked all of the folks in government, but I want to ask whether you work for the city or the state, if you can also stand and be recognized for the work that you're doing to make the Commonwealth of the city a better place. This program by thanking all of labor, because as Dr. King talked about, there is dignity and worth in all labor. And his final struggle in April 1968 was in the city of Memphis, breaking from a trip he was already taking to go be with 1,300 sanitation workers who were fighting for dignity, who were fighting for justice, because of two names that many of us here have forgotten: Echo Cole, Robert Walker. I want you to stitch those names into your memory, because those were the two gentlemen who on February 1st, 1968, trying to escape the monsoon rain of Memphis, Tennessee, as sanitation workers hopped into the back of what was called a wiener truck, or the garbage truck. And because that truck was 10 years too old, because the city of Memphis didn't make the investments they were supposed to make, the wires tripped and the compactor crushed them both. And that's what forced 1,300 of God's children to say, we're not going to take it anymore, and to fight for that dignity and to end up getting better respect, better wages, and a career path that they once did not have. So we thank all labor here in the city of Boston, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because you are making our lives better every single day. So on behalf of Mayor Michelle Wu and Baby Mira, I'd like to thank St. Cyprian's and Union United Methodist for the opportunity to stand here in her stead, and as has already been shared, for continuing the longest tradition of not just celebrating the life of Dr. King, but reinvigorating all who attend to continue his legacy and his mission, and the many thousands who were a part of that movement and that revolution. And for the last 1,113 days, I have had the great privilege and fortune as a son of this city to serve as the Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. And I've been able to serve with colleagues, some of who are here. The governor mentioned the most diverse cabinet at the state level, and we at the city level have the opportunity to boast this as well. I think of my colleague at the Boston Public Health Commissioner, a Black woman. Think of our operations chief, a Black man. Think of our community engagement chief, a Black woman. Think of our communications chief, a Black woman. I think of our police commissioner, a Black man. I think of our youth and school senior advisor, a Black woman. I think of our public safety senior advisor, a Black man. I can go on and on and on. But every day we have the privilege to be able to serve the 681,937 residents of this great city, and to make it a better place in the one that we live in. I want to thank the governor every time fabulous congressional delegation who are represented here today, our colleagues in state and city government, all who helped to work with us and partner with us to make Boston a better place for all. And finally, on behalf of little old me and the Idowu clan, I want to thank Dr. Angela Davis for the testimony that is her living, for her life and practice of service, for her commitment to justice, and who edifies and honors all of us with her presence here today. I was told that I have 5 minutes, but no one has kept to that time frame.
You're at 5 minutes.
So I'm going to take the 20 minutes that every, no, I'm just kidding. But I'm here to give remarks on behalf of Mayor Wu, and so because I'm not representing myself, I'm going to behave, something close to it. This holiday is always very interesting to me. Many of you know that I had the great and good fortune of being able to have a noble exposure to a man that many others knew as the Reverend Earl Wesley Lawson, who pastored Emmanuel Baptist Church in Malden, Massachusetts for more than 20 years, but who I had the privilege of being able to call Grandpa. And as a student at Morehouse College in 1945, he had the fortune of befriending a young man who called himself Mike, but whose father had years before changed both of their names to Martin Luther. And after graduation, my grandfather's life journey brought him here to the Commonwealth. And he met another young man who, unfortunately, is our now recently and dearly departed brother, Reverend Dr. Virgil Wood, where they founded the Massachusetts chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And it was that organization that helped to bring Dr. King here in April 1965, which will ensure that all of us in this room and all throughout the city and the Commonwealth will honor and memorialize later this year. But I got to learn things about the Civil Rights Revolution that we don't learn in our history books, and based on recent events, we probably will never learn in our history books. Every year, on the third Monday of January, I ask myself, which king will we remember? I play a little game with myself. And I'm reminded of that oft-repeated poem by that jazz legend, Carl Wendell Haynes Jr., that says, "Now that he is safely dead, let us praise him. Sing hosannas to his name, build monuments to his glory. Dead men make such convenient heroes. They cannot rise to challenge the images we would fashion from their lives, and besides, it is easier to build monuments than to make a better world." But there's one other stanza that doesn't often get read that says that, "So now that he is safely dead, we with ease of consciences will teach our children that he is a great man, knowing that the cause for which he lived is still a cause, and the dreams for which he died is still a dream, a dead man's dream." Which king are you talking about? I'm sure there's going to be many thousands of people screaming that at their TV screens in about 3 hours. Which king are you talking about? Will we hear about the king who dreamed of a world that would not judge a person by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, even though the person who will be installed as President of the United States literally got elected because of the original color of his skin rather than the content of his character? I said I was going to behave. I apologize. Is it the king who in that same speech, that speech was 16 minutes long, but we only ever focus on the last 5. Is it the king that we're going to focus on today and every day hereafter, the same one who said that we have also come to remind America of the fierce urgency of now, Now, this is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Will that be the king that we remember? Do you think they'll quote the king who said in 1967 that I have a rich and noble history, however painful and exploited that history has been? Yes, I was a slave through my foreparents, but I'm not ashamed of that. I'm ashamed of the people who were so sinful as to make me a slave. Will that be the king that we remember? Will we remember the king who said that our problem cannot be solved unless the whole of American society takes a new turn toward greater economic justice? Will we hear that today? Will we hear about the king who in 1968, before a small group gathered in a Washington church, that said that when we come to D.C. in this Poor People's Campaign, we're coming to get our check? I will not bet my crypto that we're going to hear about that Martin Luther King on this day. I'm thinking about the fullness of Dr. King this morning. The reformer who pushed for change and the radical who called for the upending of entire systems. I'm thinking of the king who was a preacher, who was well-read and knew how to read the times, and the prophet who foretold of his time going to the mountain and looking over and seeing the promised land, but who also said that if the colored peoples of this world are not brought out of their long years of suffering, that the whole world is doomed. This morning, as we take in the reality of what's taking place in Washington, D.C. and throughout this land, and looking throughout this room, I'm thinking in particular of what Dr. King had to say about true power. In August 1967, he delivered a manifesto called Where Do We Go From Here? I hope all of you take 54 minutes out of your day to listen to it. It's a wonderful and beautiful manifesto. And towards the end, he talks about his definition of power. He says, power, properly understood, is nothing but the ability to achieve purpose. It is the strength required to bring about social, political, and economic change. There's nothing wrong with power if power is used correctly. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. And I think of this because as I look throughout this room and think of all, when the elected officials were asked to stand up, and think of all who have stood on this stage, I think of the immense power that Black people in this city have right now. Not just political, not just social, but also moral, also economic, and how we have the power to bring about the Boston that we want to see today. The Boston that we deserve. The Boston that delivers justice. In addition to the cabinet that I mentioned, our city council president, half the council is people of color. Our chair of the budget is Black. I think of through the fact that 3 of the 4 major philanthropic foundations in this city are run by Black people. I think of the fact that more and more Black folk are getting into executive positions in the C-suite. I think of all the community leaders gathered in this room, pushing and agitating and building change for our future. We have power if we know how to use it. And so I think of how we, in our positions, have even used power. So many who came before us, Nolia Cass, Mel King, we can go right on and list all the names of folks who agitated for power. And so now I think as someone who has inherited those legacies, all of us here, how we have been using that power. Are we using it for the common good or to build up ourselves? Will we continue to bicker and fight and squabble over petty indifferences, or will we come together to pool our power to finally make Boston and make the Commonwealth what it ought to be? The folks up at the top today are organized. Yes, they have a document called Project 2025, but they have invaded every single system of this country. They're organized. what are we going to do with our power? The only thing that will assure the triumph of evil is for people of goodwill to do nothing with the power that they have, to not work together in unity. For us, we've been doing the very little that we can with the power that we've got to advance the cause and justice for Black people in this city. I think of the fact that just last year we talked about how this administration put more than 200 families in affordable home ownership units, and the majority of them were people of color. We're in a city where, I remember 1965, they were fighting for housing for Black people, and today we are ensuring that the majority of our dollars are going to Black and brown people in this city to generate some wealth through home ownership. I think of the fact that just my cabinet, Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, we've had $30 million to distribute to this city, and 3/4 of those dollars go into Black and brown entrepreneurs here in this city, delivering some justice for Black and brown people here in this city. I think of our contracts. Some of you knew me from when I sued the city over the fact that our contracts weren't going where they needed to go. It took 5 years for Black and brown entrepreneurs to get just $30 million worth of contracts out of 2,000 contracts. And in just 1 year, last year, we were able to deliver $100 million in contracts to Black and brown entrepreneurs in this city. What will you do with power? It's important to remember to keep the whole community in your heads and in your hearts when you have such power. There's no I or me in power. There is only we. There's also an owl for people who decide to misuse power. But as Martin King said 57 years ago this April, we've got some difficult days ahead. Difficult, but not impossible. I think of the king who pivoted from love to hope, who ended as I'm ending with my 20 minutes.
17.
22.
17. You at 17 right now.
Where he said, we shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We shall overcome because Carlyle is right. No lie can live forever. We shall overcome because William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed to earth shall rise again. We shall overcome because James Russell Lowell is right. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future. Behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch above his own. We shall overcome because the Bible is right. You shall reap what you sow. We shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome. And with this faith, we will go out and adjourn the councils of despair and bring new light into the dark chambers of pessimism. And we will be able to rise from the fatigue of despair to the buoyancy of hope. And this will be a great America. We will be the participants in making it so. And so I leave you with the words of Dr. King: if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
Incredible. No one's complaining about the 20 minutes, okay? It's great.